What is going on, everyone? By now you should already know what it is. It's Raiders Rants, Comic Raider back at it. So this one, very excited for. This is a big run. It's going to take me a long time to get through this. This will be a 4-part video by the time it's all done. And it is like I said, it's a very popular series, and that is The Green Lantern by Jeff Johns. This is volume 1 of the Omnibus. As you can see, she's a monster. And there are 2 more of these, plus a Blackest Night Omnibus, which is probably bigger than this one. And then there's a Brightest Day one, which I only have in the trade form. I think that one comes at the end of the run. I'm not entirely sure. I'll look it up later. So I'm going to go over this omnibus, so it might take me a little longer than the other videos. I'll try to make it as short as possible. But there's a lot of things I loved about it. Just a few minor complaints, but not really that much. Like I said, I got to be honest and tell you the good and the bad. So first things first, there's a question that I had, which others will have, and that is, do I need to know who Hal Jordan is? Do I need to know about the Green Lanterns beforehand? And technically the answer is no. They do a great job of explaining everything that's happened before that's gotten to the point of where this book is at. So all you need to have is a basic understanding of it. The more you know, though, I think that'll just add to a better experience. So, for example, just in reading it, there was quite a few things that I was like, okay, if you read these stories beforehand, then you understand it better. So, for example, no spoilers, but part of what one of the quote-unquote villains that you're going to see in this series comes from this series, which is Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was DC's crisis event that kind of reshaped and kind of reset things. As you probably know, every time DC needs to reset, they do a crisis event of some kind. So this was the one to reset back in the 80s, and there was a character in here who's kind of like the main villain, and let's just say he may or may not come back in this omnibus and play a role in there. So if you've read that, then you have a better understanding of who that person is and kind of where they come from and everything. After that, I know that it's in this trade, Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner, Volume 1. I'm sure that there's other ways to get it, but at the very beginning of this book, it goes over the infamous Green Lantern, or Hal Jordan, I should say, and Parallax story, which is basically, actually, I guess technically the first is Death of Superman, which kind of leads into Mongol crashing down onto Coast City, completely destroying it, and that's where Hal Jordan is from. So everyone he knows and loves is now gone. His city is gone, and it really messes him up for a long time. And that event plays a huge part in the mindset of Hal Jordan into this book. And then there's also another person from that book that makes an appearance in this one. So if you kind of read Death of Superman, then it just better understanding of some of the villains that are in here. Now, during this run, is long story short, Hal Jordan wants to bring back Coast City, so he uses his willpower to do so, and then that's against the rules, but he wants to do it, and he needs more power to do it, and the only way he knows how to get more power is to get more rings, and he then goes and attacks all the other Green Lanterns and takes their rings. You later realize that he's under the influence of Parallax, which is kind of, I guess I'll call it like the living entity of fear, of the emotion fear. It's like this big dragon thing. It's really badass. And so the two of them are together, and so it's influencing his mind, and he's going after all of them. And you may know this run from just a very infamous cover, which is that one right there with all the rings. And then you also got the introduction of Kyle Rayner because of this, and so that's where this one comes into play. And if you have a kind of basic understanding of Kyle Rayner, he plays a huge part in this, as do all the Green Lanterns. John Stewart, Guy Gardner, they're all in here. So the more you know about them, again, the better enjoyable the story would be, but it won't take anything away if you don't know them already. And then lastly, I think, is Infinite Crisis, which was also a Jeff Johns work. I'm not sure. I think this came, well, it definitely came before this one. And this was, again, trying to reset DC a little bit. And again, there's just another villain in here that plays a role in this omnibus. And so if you have a better understanding of this story, then you have a better understanding of what's going on there. And again, these are all trades. They're essential reads if you're a DC fan. So these are things that I highly recommend you check out. But because this alone is 3 giant ass omnibus, it's kind of a daunting task. So if anything, just, Wikipedia it or whatever. Just get a basic understanding of these storylines and the characters that are in them just to better help with it. So, with all that out the way, that's my I can't say pre-required, but my suggestion on pre-reading before you get into this. Now, luckily for me, I had already read all those. Otherwise, I would have been like really screwed. So, let's get into this bad boy. Very nice cover. And with all that, I'm a huge Kyle Rayner fan. I like the Green Lanterns, but this is the first like major book I've ever read about them. I've read them because of where they've been in other stories, and I have read all of Kyle Rayner's stuff, and I also have read like the first, 20 issues of Hal Jordan, like, because I have one of those old showcase, where it does the showcase series where he first appeared and kind of on through there. So I do have a basic understanding of the Green Lanterns, but I'm not a huge Green Lantern as a whole fan, at least in the sense of knowledge and all that. But I still really, really enjoyed it. So here it is without the dust jacket. And so let me get the negative out the way first. And that negative would be, it's a positive and a negative. What they do for the first few issues and huge chunk of the book is Jeff Johns does a great job of explaining origins and how we've gotten to where we are right now with Hal Jordan and where he's come from. And again, the mindset that he has from the whole Coast City thing. You have to understand that when he did that, when he attacked his own people, killed some of them, it changed how everyone thought about him and thought about what he was capable of. And there's a lot of Green Lanterns that don't trust him and do not like him. And that plays a huge part in this, because as you read it, you'll find that he encounters Green Lanterns that don't respect him, don't like him, don't want to follow him. And he's kind of like the main guy. That's pretty important that they have to do that. And there's some great interactions with the Justice League, too, who also don't really trust him either. There is a very badass scene with Batman that I won't get into, but there's a few scenes with Batman where the two of them are not seeing eye to eye, and it was pretty badass. So my negative was just that it's a slow start. It's a very slow start. You might even be confused a little bit as to where this is going, but I promise you, if you chug through it, and I actually heard this before I read it too, but if you chug through it and you get through the first part, when this book picks up, it does not stop. It's kind of like an origin movie, how it's that slow build, but when this thing gets going, it gets going, and it is amazing. So, again, so you got all the origin stuff, like I said, and some battles here and there. Pretty much the basic idea of it in this first issue is that, or the first run, is that the Green Lanterns are trying to build up their army again. There's some prophecies that they think are coming, and so they're building up all the Green Lanterns. They're recruiting more and more and more. And on the flip side is Sinestro is doing the same thing with the Yellow Lanterns. He is coming up with a bunch of people who instill fear, and he's growing his army. And I will tell you that they go in deep. Like I said, one of the best things about this book is how well explained everything is. It may sound confusing at times, but then as it goes on, like, everything gets explained. And when they go over in depth all the different people that are being recruited by Sinestro and why are they feared, Oh, it's badass. I mean, these are some badass mofos that he's recruiting. There's one that's killed billions, billions of people, and when you see who it is, you're like, damn, never really thought about that uh, being capable of holding a lantern or holding a ring and being a yellow lantern. But um, it's amazing. And then, like I said, the Green Lanterns are doing the same thing. They're recruiting, they're going on missions, and they're building up. And as they're building up, you get a great introduction to Kilowog. If you're not familiar with him already, he is like the big brute on the Green Lantern squad, and he's basically the trainer. He is the ultimate trainer of all the Green Lanterns. And so as all these new recruits are coming in, he's the one that's in charge of training them all, and he's just a badass. But there is another person on the Yellow Lanterns. It's basically the same thing, Archeo. It could be Archillo, but two L's. I think that makes a Y to me. But Archeo, he is kind of like the same thing on the Yellow Lantern side. And one of my favorite parts about this book is that the two of them have to go at it, and it doesn't just like have them go at it and then you call it a day and you move on. They go at each other a few times throughout the book, and it gets better and better and better. And that's what I loved about it. So about halfway through here, I'm flipping through, and it's definitely picked up at this point, as far as each of them growing their bases and everything, and still going over a lot of backstory. I'm a little bit more than halfway through now, and it's still explaining and setting up a lot. But like I said, the payoff is going to be worth it, because what you're going to get in this volume after all the explaining is done, and you get like the Star Sapphires and all that, you're going to hit a point where you realize what has all this training been building up to, and that is the Sinestro War, or I think it's Sinestro Corps War. And it's finally all these armies and people that have been built by both sides now are fully at war. And this is where you're going to get the introduction into everyone that I mentioned before. This is when now all that previous knowledge helps enjoy it more, because you understand the importance of these villains when they arrive, because you've seen the destruction that they've caused before. At this point in time, Kyle Rayner is taking over as Ion, which is kind of like the central battery power, again, like a living embodiment, kind of, if you will, of willpower. And so he's taken over as that, and then there's a bunch of stuff that goes down there. And but I will say also, throughout, the art is amazing. They do have a few artists in here. So here's Kilowog. This is one of, well, here, I'm going to do it this way. See if it focuses. So there's my man Kilowog, and he is the ultimate trainer and badass. But the art all the way through, and it's not really focusing that much for me. But anyways, you get the point. My man's the ultimate trainer. And so, like I said, now the war, later on in this story, now at this point, the war has begun. And like I said, when it gets going, it gets going. And the Green Lanterns, for quite a while, get their asses whooped. And the Guardians play a huge part. The little Smurfs, if you're not too familiar with who they are, they play a huge part in this story, and they have to make some huge decisions in this book, and kind of change a lot about the Green Lanterns. And you know, in war, sometimes you got to make some tough decisions, and these guys had to make some tough decisions and change things up. But like I said, I can't give stuff away, but when this war gets going, it is nonstop, and it's action after action after action. And I wrote down a few things that I wanted to talk about, and part of that was the background of some of these characters, because I got to a point where I was like, you know, thinking of exactly that. Well, what would you have to read before to have a better understanding? As I'm doing that, I hit this issue where they do an amazing job of explaining the background to one of the characters, where he came from, how he's gotten to where he is to be this villain, his ultimate plan, how badass and brutal he is, and why he's so angry, and it is just, so that's what I'm saying about the explanation. Just when you think I'm kind of lost, I wish they would explain this, he then goes and explain it. And that was just amazing. That was amazing that it does a great job. So like I said, it's hard because I did have the knowledge already, but if you didn't, I think the book itself does a great job of explaining everything so you wouldn't have to necessarily have all that previous knowledge. So that was what I thought would be a negative that then turned into a positive. I will say sometimes during the war, my only other complaint is sometimes the panels get kind of weird because some of them, it does the 2-page spread and you got to read it across and then across and across. And then on like the very next page it'll be this way. But there's so much action going on and it's all blending together that it was kind of hard to tell which panel I was really supposed to read next. And that's a very, very small complaint. I understand I'm nitpicking, but again, I'm just trying to find things that, you say, oh, well, you made it sound like this was perfect. It's not perfect, no book is, but this one comes pretty damn close. So slow start, but once it gets going, and that war is amazing between all of them. And there is some insane panels, and I want to show these off, and I'm just going to have to wait and let this thing focus so you can kind of see what we're working with here. So there is Hal and Kyle Rayner on a 2-page spread, and that is also another reason why I really loved, there's my Star Wars in the background, why I really loved the Omnibus is because it focuses in on that action way more. So here, I'm going to find a couple, and then this way I can just show you without spoiling everything. That's the big thing. But yeah, this whole book was outstanding. And then what it sets up later, so you fully understand the grasp of how important this whole war is and why it matters. And that's what they did a great job of doing. And then what it's going to set up, what I do know is this. Volume 2 is going to be, so this ends the Sinestro Corps War. Volume 2 is going to be the Blackest Night storyline. And here we go. Now I got some good panels. Is going to be the Blackest Night storyline. So you're supposed to read Volume 2 until you get to Blackest Night. Jump to the Blackest Night Omnibus just so that you have the full story, and then when you finish it, jump back to Volume 2. So once I get through those, which is going to be a while, but once I get through them, I'll probably maybe do a review on kind of both. We'll see how it goes. And then Volume 3, which I have absolutely no idea what Volume 3 is. I knew Volume 1 was going to have the Sinestro Corps. I know Volume 2 is Blackest Night. I have no idea what's in Volume 3, but I hope it's just as good, because Volume 3 might even be the biggest. There's one of them that's the biggest, 2 or 3, and I'm really hoping that it doesn't slow down. But like I said, this is regarded as one of the best written comics ever. Not just Green Lantern, but DC-wise and even comics-wise. A lot of people have this on their list of must-read. So, and now that I'm through the first one, I see why. So, last couple things I want to do, like I said, is I want to go over the art. So this is part of that whole all-out war. Oops. Okay, maybe we'll do it this way, just so you can kind of see it, and you can get the grasp of everything that's going on here. I mean, you've got lanterns down here fighting, you got lanterns up there fighting. I mean, it is just all-out war, like I said. The colors are spectacular. Everything about this book was spectacular. So that's pretty much that. I will say, some of you, whether you have read this series or not, are quite familiar with another part of it, because one of the best parts about this story is that it gave us one of the greatest covers ever. It's a variant, one of the greatest variants ever. And that's this one right here. Ethan Van Sciver, Green Lantern 9 with Batman getting a Green Lantern ring. And got the damn camera in the way. But anyways, point is, this cover is amazing. It's one of my favorite covers ever. I don't think it shows up on there, but how green this damn thing is, how bright it is just beautiful. So, anyways, I think that's pretty much it for that. I mean, I took some notes, like I said, but I pretty much went over everything I want to. But so this one is 100% for sure getting a you have to read this. I know it's an omnibus form. Omnibuses are not very cheap, but you can get them on instocktrades.com for pretty cheap. Target, as of, well, see, by the time I post this video, it won't really matter. But anyways, be on the lookout for Target and Amazon. They do some sales too, but in stock trades, if they still have these, are definitely worth it. And I would try to just pick up all three, because once you get one, you're gonna want to read the second. And I think the second is the sought after one that sells out. I'm pretty sure it's the second one because it has the Blackest Night storyline in it, so that's the one that people want. Although with them making a Blackest Night omnibus, I would assume that the hype kind of has helped kill that. So all in all, like I said, omnibus is a long read, but I just imagine trying to collect all this in trades. That would be freaking so hard. But yeah, this is worth it. Whether you're a Green Lantern fan, whether you have no idea about Green Lanterns, the book itself, and Jeff Johns does an amazing job of explaining it for you. And then, like I said, I gave my pre-suggestions on what you could read beforehand. But yeah, it's an amazing story. I see why so many people love it. I highly recommend it. Now, this is definitely going to be on my must-read, wish list for anyone, if you ask me. And so now, I will be on to volume 2, and we'll see how that one goes, and then I'll make a review when that one's done. And stick around, people. I know this was probably my longest video, but like I said, if I'm gonna review Omnibus, I mean, I gotta go into detail, man. And I still made it spoiler free. I hope I gave you enough info to make you really want to read it, though. Like I said, it's worth it. Just imagine space action like you've never seen before. It's insane. So yeah, with all that, thank you. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know below, have you read it? This is one of those that so many people have read this. So if you have, let me know what you thought. If you haven't, hopefully I convinced you to get it. And yeah, once you do read it, then let me know what you think, because I thought that this was amazing. So till the next video, adios everyone, and have a good one. Stay safe out there, read comics, have fun. Peace.